Tonight we're going to be looking at the nullification crisis, which was one of the issues that was going on during Jackson's presidency. We looked at them yesterday in class. This is going to go into a little bit more detail of what the nullification crisis was and how it led to even increased sectionalism within the United States, specifically between the North and the South, which is going to be one of those big things that causes us to go into civil war in the long run. So to kind of start all this off, we've got the American system, and what the American system did, it was a program that essentially created for trade between the North and the South. They wanted to increase that trade, specifically along the Mississippi River, expanded the building infrastructure in the West, so they wanted to make sure that more people were moving west, they were using that land well, that the government was able to be in control of those areas, as well as creating really high tariffs or taxes, sale of public lands at low costs. So they sold that public land in the western part of the country for these really cheap prices, so people would want to go out there. Federally financing transportation, expanding markets for wheat and cotton, and then creating a strong national bank. And you can see how all of these things would encourage people to want to move west. And that was the goal in this, and also to encourage that trade between the North and South, specifically with that wheat and cotton was the big one. Cotton was huge during this time period. So what's the problem with all of this? The tariff of abomination is what people started to refer to this tax as. It happened in 1828. It was supposed to promote this idea of growth, that economic growth that we needed during this time period, but it actually ended up making Southerners really, really angry. They felt like it favored the northern industry and was not very good for the raw products that were being produced in the South. Because we know that cotton comes down from the South being the cotton ball, and then it goes up to the North and it's produced into the textile. So why? It raised the cost of manufactured goods, which they did not produce. Okay, so the North was getting most of the income from this tariff while the South was still not. So that's what's going to cause the problems. So the consequences of nullification, one of the things, it's promoted by John C. Calhoun, and you're going to hear his name again. He's South Carolina, big, very, he's feisty. He's caused a lot of problems in history. Basically, he said that the states could nullify a federal law within its territory until 3/4 of the states said the law was constitutional. What that means is that he felt like individual states should have a right to wipe a law off the record completely, ignore that law until 3/4 of the states agreed that this law was okay. Okay, so you can see where that would cause some problems. The first state to really threaten with this nullification and even to follow through is South Carolina. So Jackson's response to nullification, he declares it illegal, which was frustrating because he was a states' right advocate. He asked Congress to use force in South Carolina in order to execute this law, basically that he was saying this nullification is legal or is illegal, so you can't do this. He sends 8 ships and 5,000 muskets to Charleston Harbor in order basically to threaten Charleston in saying, listen, you have to follow this law, okay? You have to use these tariffs. You can't nullify this. So eventually they come up with a compromise. Henry Clay, once again, the great compromiser, he's going to persuade Congress to pass a tariff with lower tax levels so that the Southerners didn't feel that the North was favored quite as much. South Carolina backs down a little bit, but still passes a state law that permitted nullification. So that was kind of their backhanded response to this was, no, we can't do this federally, but state law, we're saying this is going to be, we're going to nullify some of these things that are going on in the North. This is once again going to lead to the Civil War and South Carolina's original threats to secede from the Union. So this is important to keep in mind as we move on to our next unit, which is going to be the causes of the Civil War. So take good notes tonight, and I will see you guys tomorrow.